Christopher Nolan's 2010 blockbuster Inception is, for my money, a modern classic. From a technical standpoint, it's an absolute marvel with awe-inspiring visuals such as the collapsing buildings or the rotating corridor. Hans Zimmer's score is one of my favourites in film, and it's a thoroughly enjoyable, immersive experience to just bask in this dream world. However, I've said it before and I will say it again, a film can be technically brilliant, but if it lacks interesting, engaging stories and characters, I won't enjoy it. It just, to me, becomes the cinematic equivalent of white noise. Thankfully, Inception is not that at all, as its high-concept sci-fi is intertwined with really gripping character drama involving our main protagonist, Dom Cobb, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Even though he's clearly framed as the main protagonist that we follow and are aligned with, and whilst calling him a bad person would definitely be a stretch, I find it fascinating as to how complex he is as a character, particularly with his morality not being as black and white as we'd typically expect from our heroes. Nolan was inspired by many films when creating Inception, the likes of Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, as well as the works of filmmakers Michael Mann and Ridley Scott. But another big influence on the film? The James Bond series. The third dream layer in the climax of the Snow Fortress is probably the most overt Bond homage, as it very clearly apes the climax of 1969's On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the only film starring George Lazenby as Bond, and allegedly Nolan's favourite Bond film. However, I feel the Bond homages extend to more than just that one action set piece. For instance, take a look at the opening sequence at Sato's mansion. It bears similarities to a typical Bond pre-credit scene due to how it's a relatively disconnected piece of action from the rest of the film, with this setting only being revisited in a short scene within limbo very late in the film. This little sequence sets up various characters for the film, it establishes the concept of an Inception, and there's many spy film tropes that you can find here. The characters are in formal attire, the food and drinks they have are of a high standard, there's the sneaking around and the espionage, and the way Cobb is shot is very Bond-esque. We get some slight low angles of Cobb, such as when he points the gun here, which makes him seem taller and someone the audience should look up to, but the cinematography doesn't go overboard with the low angles, it's more subtle in that regard. Nolan has essentially created his own Bond character here. The sharp suit, the slick back tidy hair, and having a well-known star in DiCaprio portray the character accentuate the kind of typical male archetype that an audience would look up to. Another key aspect of Cobb is his knowledge and intellect on the dream technology, an original concept for the film. In the aforementioned opening scene, he explains the idea of an inception to Sato, and later in the film, once Ariadne is recruited, he's able to explain to her and us, the audience, the nature of dreams. In the first sort of test dream for Ariadne at the cafe, when the buildings start crumbling and exploding around them, Cobb is able to hold a neutral facial expression throughout all of it. He's unfazed by this due to his knowledge of this dream technology. Therefore, he's unfazed by the sense of danger in these dream worlds, making him ideal as an extractor within the subconscious for the mission later in the film. These traits that Cobb exudes, that of bravery and knowledge, will initially make an audience trust him. He's able to keep in control of situations, and this element of trust in the audience is conveyed very effectively through the character of Ariadne. The way she's shot is actually really important to convey this. For instance, when we first see her in the university corridor, we see her in a long shot with multiple other students passing by. She's depicted as one of the crowd, making her very normal and relatable to an audience. In the next scene where her and Cobb design the maze, there are some over-the-shoulder shots used that, whilst not fully being a POV shot, the camera is aligned with how Ariadne would see things, which aligns us with her. And she acts as a really good audience surrogate for the film for us to connect with, due to knowing as much about the dream technology as we do, that being not that much. She trusts Cobb due to his guidance, therefore we trust him too. Now, it's important to understand that the reason Cobb takes the job offer for the dream heist from Sato is because Sato is in a high enough position to clear Cobb of any charges in order for him to return to his children, all in the wake of his wife's death that he was framed for. We are fully able to see the pain and guilt that Cobb feels over this incident in the flashback scene where Mol meets her demise, and it's really the first time that we fully see Cobb's guard let down, showing, for the first time in the film, a real sense of genuine vulnerability. This scene uses a lot of handheld camera movements, as well as the curtains. There seems to be flowing in the wind, so it creates an uneven feeling within the frame, accentuated by all the mess within the hotel room, like the broken glass, for example. The uneven visuals that we can see are able to convey and reflect Cobb's uneven state of mind at this time, as he just loses control of the situation. Cobb's dialect and his speech is also much less fluid here than it previously is in the film. He stutters sometimes, he repeats words, and as the scene carries on, he begins to yell, culminating in just screams of pure anguish from Cobb. You see him try to maintain control here, but it simply doesn't work. Mal is too far down the rabbit hole of living in the dream world that Cobb himself led her down. He was the one who performed the inception on his own wife of living in this dream world, so he is very much responsible for distorting Mal's vision of reality. Whilst the emotions of the character conflicts hit hard thanks to the great performances and filmmaking, in addition to a relatable ideology of wanting to reunite with his children, I don't think it truly clocks to viewers initially just how flawed some of Cobb's decisions are, this inception of Mal being one of them, and she isn't the only victim. Kelly Murphy's Fisher is the target of the main heist within the subconscious, with the team essentially breaching his privacy by entering his subconscious, as well as exploiting the grief he feels over his dying father, all in an effort to prop up Sato's business. Despite that relatable ideology, Cobb is still complicit in this. However, for me, his biggest flaw as a person is his need to be a hero. Author Laura Berman Fortgang defines the hero complex, aka hero syndrome, as, and I quote, a phenomenon affecting people who seek heroism or recognition, usually by creating a desperate situation which they can resolve and subsequently receive the accolades from, end quote. This is something that can absolutely be applied to Cobb, and I would argue is his biggest character flaw, and it really comes about during the whole heist on the first layer in the streets, when he hasn't told the team about the risk revolving the limbo state in the subconscious. It's absolutely a danger. However, due to the fact that you don't die within dreams, it isn't as dangerous as it could be. It's almost akin to in a video game getting extra lives, for example.
So, now we're trapped in Fisher's mind battling his own private army, and if we get killed, we'll be lost in limbo till our brains turn to scrambled egg.
Cobb, having the knowledge and understanding of the dream world, would be able to orchestrate it in order to save those in trouble if needed, appearing as the hero, but not from a genuine desire. And I interpret this as his guilt over the death of Mal plaguing him so much to the point that this dream heist can give him the chance to be the hero due to his knowledge and skills as a fighter. I think the fact that the dream layers can represent and reflect certain genres and sort of the conventions of these genres, it gives Cobb multiple opportunities to appear as the hero. You know, the first layer has the action chase on the streets, the second layer, the espionage spy intrigue in the hotel, the third layer, the Bond-esque action spectacle in the snowy fortress. These are typical scenarios that you would find a hero in. But at the end of the film, he does get the chance to save someone, but it's not in any of these states, it's in limbo, where he saves Sato. Sato ends up in limbo at the end of the film, so Cobb selflessly goes down to save him. When we see him confront the old version of Sato that's been in limbo for decades, the close-up that we have on Cobb shows us a completely different man to what we've seen prior, both physically and it reflects the character journey he's been on. His clothes are very messy and tattered, his hair is unkempt, contrasting how it appears throughout the film, and we can even see some facial cuts and scars on his nose and cheek. And in this scene, he doesn't have a weapon, all he has is the spinning top, the totem used to signify whether he's in a dream or not. And the extreme close-up shot of the totem really accentuates just how little he has. This is it. The following shot of Sato picking up a gun allows us to infer that he shoots himself in the dream to wake up into reality, as the next shot is of Cobb waking up on the plane. But, of course, for a PG-13 film, they wouldn't depict something that graphic. This is all key to show his progression throughout the film, as he states that the totems are personal to oneself previously in the film. So the fact that he shares the totem with Sato to give him the knowledge that he's dreaming in order to save him shows his selfless desire to help his peers that he's been on this mission with. It's also emblematic of how Nolan truly sees his heroes, not just here, but in other films of his. Brute force and physical strength can only get you so far, but what will truly win the day is using your knowledge to inform decisions that can do some real good for many other people, not just for yourself. Whether this be Batman's selfless decision that can potentially ruin his reputation at the end of The Dark Knight, Cooper's sacrifices in Interstellar, and Cobb sharing his knowledge of the dreams with Sato to help him break out. And overall, it reflects how he's become much more open and less closed off, thanks to the likes of Ariadne, which ultimately helped him to overcome his guilt and trauma over Mal. And as those simple, peaceful notes on Hans Zimmer's piano start to kick in, he can move forward. He's now finally content he can accept the reality he has with his children. Even if this is reality, or in fact a dream, it doesn't matter. After all, he's no longer focused on the totem. He's not even looking at it. He's with his family, where he should be.